keep you blind in most areas of your life. You'll be ineffectual, and you'll be at his mercy. You know, many Christians do bad things. You know, they just get caught up in habitual things. They make choices. They get angry. You know, I know Christians that have committed murder. You know, I know Christians who've jumped off cliffs and committed suicide, where they've listened to that voice. And there is the key, because the devil has authority over us when we listen to him. The only thing, so go back to the Garden of Eden, where Adam and Eve were first deceived. Now, the only way the devil could get his influence in that garden was for Eve to listen to him and then act, which is what she did. And then Adam came along and followed suit. So let's have a quick look to back this up even a bit more. Luke 4, verse 5 and 8. 5 through to 8. What we have here is after Jesus has been out in the wilderness for 40 days, not eating anything, and spending time preparing himself for his ministry. And he comes back in, and straight away the devil comes to him and tries to influence him. And the one that I want to show you is verse...
Luke, the third book in the New Testament, if you
yeah. It'll be in the notes anyway that I give you, so that it's okay. Luke 4.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, sorry, I make assumptions or something. Luke 4, 5 to 8. And in this temptation, he says, and he led him up and showed him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time. And the devil said to him, I will give you all this domain and its glory, for it has been handed over to me, and I give it to whomever I wish.
No.
Now he's acting as though he's got authority there, isn't he?
Yeah.
So who gave him that authority?
Man.
He took it.
Human beings. Human beings. You see, from the moment of the fall, human beings, first of all, God had to cut us off from his presence. So we were no longer protected or in constant communion with God. Then the devil had no problem in being able to influence human beings. And we see not long after the fall, then you see where Cain kills Abel. You know, there's a whisper in Cain's ear that, of jealousy, because Abel's sacrifice or offering was accepted, and yet Cain's wasn't. And he got angry and he killed him. He listened to that voice. And so the devil has the authority on earth only because we allow him to have. Us human beings are the only ones that can give him that authority. So conversely, if the kingdom of darkness is built by human beings giving him authority, what's the converse of that? And this is the exciting bit. The kingdom of heaven is built by human beings listening to God and building his kingdom.
That's good.
Yeah. In fact, the only reason that we talk about the kingdom of darkness is that human beings have allowed him to have that authority. Now, when that revelation actually hits you, it's pretty scary, because it means that we have responsibility. We have the responsibility to bring in the kingdom of heaven. And we're going to look after we have a cup of coffee, we're going to look at the kingdom of heaven, the kingdom of God, and how it impacts us on planet Earth, and how to bring the kingdom of God in. Now, can you remember, those of you who were here when I was here, what's the theme for this course? Okay.
If you want the blessings of God, you've got to do it His way.
Good one. Someone? Pastor had to. I was on the spot then, wasn't he?
I typed it so many times.
What did you say again?
If you want, underline you, want God's blessing, you, underline, have to do it, whatever it is, God's way.
Yeah.
So, God's blessing, God's way. When we become a Christian, sorry, I just blew the sound man. So, when we become a Christian, the hardest thing is that we've been doing life our own way for years. You know, we've lived with ourselves. We know what's worked for us, but again, around our life is often not as good as we'd like it to be. And then we get a little bit of revelation that there is a better way. And the way to bring the blessing of God into your life is to make God's choices in your life. If you begin to make God's choices in your life, God will meet you where you're at, and the blessings will flow. Now we're going to look in 2 weeks' time at why the blessings will flow. There is a structure. The universe that God's created and the relationship that He's made with human beings is actually, there is some structure to it. Remember the thing I had with John running up and down bouncing the ball. What was the key thing that made the difference from him being very nervous up the front with the blindfold on to then being able to sort of bounce the ball up and down? The thing was, while he had the blindfold on, he was in the dark and he didn't know the rules of the game. You know, and we tend to live life without knowing the rules of life, the ones that God has established and set down for us. So, in 2 weeks' time, we're going to look at this thing called the covenant, which is the rules of the game for the relationship with God, for your life, and for receiving the blessings. Because you see, a part of a covenant is the blessings that accrue to you if you enter into that covenant. And so we're going to look at that in 2 weeks' time. So, if you wanted God's way in your life, what do you need to do? Let's see if we've got Walking in the Power 101. First subject, nailed. What do you need to do?
Do it God's way.
Do it God's way. You've got to make a choice to go God's way. In fact, you know, that's the story of life, isn't it? You come to a fork in the road and there's 2 ways. And if you're aware, sometimes we're not aware that there's 2 ways because we haven't had the revelation yet. But once we get that revelation that there's 2 ways, we then have to make a choice. In fact, you know, the cartoons with sometimes with Bugs Bunny or these different ones, you know, that's really started to date me now because most of the cartoons are Avatar and all these different ones that are around these days. They get quite complicated. But Bugs Bunny, I like Bugs Bunny, nice and simple. Little devil on this shoulder, little saint on this shoulder. And the influence that comes to you is almost like that. There's a whisper, do it this way, do it this way.